Hello everybody and thank you. My name is Joyce Garvey. I'm an artist and a writer and I'm delighted to have been asked here today with Frances Mazzetti to talk about women's voices. My own interest is in women and identity and the struggle some women have getting their voices heard, particularly in the arts. It began seriously when I started a PhD in creative writing. The subject which led to the writing of a trilogy of novels. These are my books. In these novels, I was specifically looking at what it must be like for those women who are closely associated with someone of great fame in the same field as they are. I was asking, how do they make their voices heard? For instance, this is my novel published in 2016. It is about the wonderful Frida Kahlo, the Mexican artist, who you might know was married to the very famous mural artist Diego Rivera. Two painters living together. As a painter myself, I'd imagine that the competition must have been furious, and it was. Diego was so famous that Frida Kahlo had a hard time and a struggle to establish her own artistic identity, although she, of course, was an equally fine painter. There was a great newspaper article which a friend of mine sent me recently. The article pictured Frida Kahlo at her easel painting, and the headline said, "Wife of master mural painter gleefully dabbles in art." We can only imagine the Mexican swear words Frida might have uttered after that, but it kind of says it all. But we know what an icon of painting in the world Frida Kahlo turned out to be, and my book tells this story. My third novel in the trilogy is just published and it's on poet Sylvia Plath. It's going to be launched in the Writers' Centre on November the 11th, so you're all very welcome to come. Sylvia, as you know, was married to Ted Hughes, one of the foremost poets of the 20th century. Much has been written about Sylvia's struggle with her depression, and my book deals with that. But what I was particularly asking was how or if the accomplishments of Hughes had any bearing on her life and the struggle she had with her depression. For it wasn't really until they bitterly broke up that Sylvia wrote, and I quote, "I am producing free stuff I had locked in me for years. The muse has come to live here now that Ted is gone." And it was only then that she completed her very best work. She wrote her aerial poems, which won her the Pulitzer Prize. Of course, this is just a very small piece in the very large jigsaw that was Sylvia Plath, but it was an intriguing question to explore. But the real reason I'm here today is this book, It's the second in the trilogy, and it's about professional dancer, writer, artist Lucia Joyce, daughter of James Joyce. I spent 2 years researching the Lucia book, and the questions I was asking were: how difficult was it for her to be James Joyce's daughter? Was this how she was defined in her lifetime, as she is now when she's dead? Could she ever be herself? Even her love life and her affair with Samuel Beckett, her biographer suggests that he was only interested in her getting to her genius father through her. So was her life intrinsically affected by her father? And was this a factor in the eternal struggle she had in her life? Her father called her attention-seeking outbursts, her King Lear moments. At his 50th birthday party, for instance, she took a wooden chair, lifted it up in the air, and crashed it down on her mother's head. And then, of course, her voice and identity was stolen from her entirely when she was placed in a mental asylum. The shamed, mad daughter of the genius was hidden away. All Lucia's writing and letters of this time were destroyed by the Joyce family. She spent the next 31 years of her life in asylums, and she died there at the age of 76. I wanted to try to find out what it was like for her. So through Northampton University in England, I was able to gain access to Northampton Mental Asylum, where Lucia spent her last 30 years. It's still operating as a psychiatric hospital. It's a huge, very grand place now called St Andrew's Psychiatric Hospital, and it treats the rich and famous for drug addiction and the likes. But the original building where Lucia was is still in use. So it was really very emotional for me to be able to walk, so to speak, in her footsteps, to wander around looking at places she might have been and sat and stood and contemplated. There was this big, huge tree in the grounds beside the building where Lucia was, where they told me that the patients would have been allowed out in good weather to take their afternoon tea. I stood under that same tree and tried to feel what it might have been like for her. Did she, as a dancer, get up and dance around the tree? Was she allowed? Lucia had serious mental issues, of course, but in no way, in my own very humble opinion, was she mad. Many women were locked up there just for being difficult or depressed. I was able to look at the records of the time, and, for instance, women's ailments, in inverted commas, was a recurring reason why some women were locked away there. And remember, this wasn't that long ago. Lucia was there from 1952 until 1983 when she died. It's really hard to comprehend. So even after I'd finished my book on Lucia and I'd finished my PhD, Lucia still resonated very strongly in my psyche. And I couldn't help asking if Lucia Joyce had been the daughter of Joe Soap instead of James Joyce, could things have turned out differently for her? There's a very fine line, as we know, between genius and madness. So because I'm an artist as well as a writer and still had unanswered questions about Lucia, I decided to embark on a visual study of Lucia Joyce through art. And luck would have it that I met up with extraordinary video, performance and installation artist Francis Mazzetti. And we have embarked on a 5-year art project on Lucia that Francis is going to tell you about now. Thank you.